Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is CeCi and today you're watching another speed build, and this speed build is going to be another build for my Frozen Hearts LP, which is already, let's see, by the time this video goes up there are 2 episodes on the channel, and the third one is coming, but I wanted to put this one out, or this video out first, because this build will be featured in the third video. So this is Alexander Estates, and it is the sort of vampire layer of one of the vampire households, or really the main vampire household that I'll be featuring on this channel. So if you've watched Frozen Hearts, you know that it is a story about a young girl who had cancer and was changed into a vampire at the request of her father, or at the urging of her father, by a vampire called John Alexander. So the girl's name's Angelique, and the vampire that changed her is called John Alexander. And John is originally a part of a house of vampires called the House of Alexander, and his master is a vampire called Roderick Alexander. And so this is whose house that is, and in this particular house there will be, let's see, 5 vampires, including Roderick. And then we'll have Amelia, which you've also saw in the first episode, and then 3 other vampires, Knox, Simon, and Colsey. And so you'll kind of see a little bit more of their story in episode 3, maybe even episode 4. I might feature them heavily as well, but definitely in episode 3 you'll get to know those vampires. And they're vampires. They feed off humans. They're the type that feed off humans, unlike John, who no longer feeds off humans. And we'll kind of get in, when we get to that part, we'll get into the story about, how they all became to be vampires, sort of what their background is. But I wanted this house to be very Victorian inspired. I wanted to feel very old. It is set here in the countryside of Windenburg, which I imagine is probably where Roderick originates from. Roderick is very old, and so kind of the story, just sort of the backstory, is that he created this estate and has been living here his entire vampiric existence. And perhaps the people in the village, they don't realize that all of these years, these several decades, that it's Roderick. And they probably just think that the family that lives here, there's at least one person that just looks a lot like his father, grandfather, great-grandfather. They don't realize that it's the same person. Because I imagine that Roderick is a very established, or the Alexanders are a very established family. Not quite sure as to how they earn money, or how they've been earning their money. I did mention in episode 2 that John used to be, I guess, a little con artist. He created counterfeit art pieces and forged documents, like calligraphy, using his calligraphy skills, kind of a Neil Caffrey of vampires, but he no longer does that. And so I haven't really decided how the Alexander Estates make their money. I'm sure at some point they were very involved in some kind of business, but now are just filthy rich and probably don't necessarily have to work like they used to. But again, maybe you can get in the comments and kind of help me figure out what it is they do, where they get their money from. I thought maybe, you know, real estate or something like that, but not sure. And so now the build is coming together. You can see right now it is black, and that is what I wanted. I wanted the build to be this complete, ominous, blacked out mansion that you see from the roadway and you think, wow, that place looks kind of creepy but beautiful. And in reality, I love complete blacked out houses. I think they're so pretty. I would want to live in one. I know that'd probably be something that I'd have to build, especially in my region of the world. I've never seen a house that's completely blacked out other than on Pinterest. So it was a little difficult because there's not a whole lot of true black in the build and buy. But I used some cats and dog siding, and of course I used the little trim from Vampires, and you'll see later that I'll be using the vampire windows and vampire dormer windows and all that are all black. I'm using that fencing that's black, and you'll also kind of see this is pretty much the structure of the building. It's not going to change. I think as I'm speaking and looking, this is how the building ends up. The interior, however, changes a lot. And I did split this video up in two parts. So this first part is the exterior. I should have mentioned that at the top. And then the second part will be the interior. And I changed that up a lot. Like I kept filming it, kept bulldozing the inside of the house and refilming it, because on the outside I wanted to feel very, you know, ominous and kind of scary, and this big, you know, black house off in the distance and very, you know, mysterious. But on the inside I wanted to feel like a family, an affluent family, but a family lives here. You know, a very well-off family, and I wanted to feel very cozy and colorful. So I have several different iterations, and hopefully I'll be able to put that second part up shortly, and you'll get to see that. So in this part you'll also see me build and furnish out a garage. It's meant to be kind of a 3-car garage, but I do utilize a lot of build and buy in the garage. That way you have things to do. And these vampires, you know, like I said, they've been around for a very long time, especially Roderick. CeCi will be aside from John, will be the third oldest. And then it will be Amelia, Knox, and Simon. And again, I'll get into their stories in the Let's Play, but they do also have a few humans living with them as well to be able to feed off of, which I will call those types of humans Sims bleeders, because they knowingly allowed themselves to be fed. They volunteer their blood to these vampires, and for several reasons. Some they're just really into the vampire scene, and then some want to become vampires themselves. But Roderick really values loyalty and won't change them until just before they are meant to turn into adults. And that will kind of establish that they will be loyal to him and his family, and they won't share their secret that they're vampires. But now I'm working on the landscaping, and I really wanted this space to feel like have a very long driveway. So it feels like if you see it from the street, you could probably see a little bit of the house, but you mostly see this huge driveway that's sort of surrounded by trees. And it's, you know, not easy to do, especially at this particular lot, because it's a big square. And but I would hope that you know, from the Sims point of view, that the illusion that I'm wanting, you can sort of get that. Now there's not a whole lot of crazy landscaping, mostly because, and I'll be honest, I just didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't want it to feel like this super manicured or very lush garden, because I just don't feel that that is Roderick's style. I feel Roderick is very he has a very sort of clean kind of palette, if that makes any sense, that he wouldn't want a lot of crazy landscaping, like some trees and very manicured grass, but no flowers, nothing like that, because I just feel like he just doesn't like that look. Like, he likes things to feel very clean and very monotone and that kind of vibe. And so I wanted the landscaping to be very sparse and not really have a whole lot going on with it. And so I also decided to put this big wall fence around the entire place, because I would also imagine that the Alexanders are a very secretive family, because they don't want anybody to know that they're vampires, and they, don't want anyone to be able to sneak onto the property. So they probably have a lot of security footage, a lot of security cameras. Now, when we get into the interiors, you'll notice that there are some things that I just don't include, because I feel like, as these vampires have been around for a very long time, that they have no use for things like television, and there'll be like one computer, but for the most part, I just imagine that they're not very, they don't use a whole lot of technology, because it's just, they were all born in a time when there wasn't a lot of technology. So it's just not something that they're interested in. And their humans will have, more technology, because, they're modern and they want them to feel comfortable. But for the most part, the vampires just kind of laze around the house all day doing their various skills and activities, and then they feed, and then every once in a while they might go out to actually do a hunt, though that's not something they do much anymore. But yeah, like I said, we'll get into full swing with their stories, especially when I start getting into the interior. But I do think the landscaping came out pretty well. Like, it's probably not the most exciting landscaping that I've done. I did put a picture, a kind of work in progress picture, and I did get a couple of comments on this little driveway with the trees lined up. So that was helpful. Sometimes I like to put photos of my work in progress on my Twitter page just to see what people think, because, I don't always know if what I'm building is something that people would like, and so having a little bit of feedback or suggestions is always helpful with the work in progress. Now, these dormer windows, I put them down. I didn't scroll through the various swatches, but they do come in complete black, which I did not realize. And so you'll see in the screenshots that the dormer windows no longer have that little gold piece at the top, because I realized when it's going through that, I could get it in all black, which is what I wanted. I wanted this house to be completely blacked out, no color whatsoever. That's kind of frustrating with those Strangerville windows, that they're not really black, they're like brown. I am starting to put larger windows. Now, the windows that I place on the back of the house, you will see will change in the second part, because I wanted, like I said, I wanted the interior to feel very cozy and very friendly, and I imagine that every decade or so, Roderick comes through the interior of the house and guts it to fit what the, interior design style is now. And so these windows at the bottom will become big modern windows and big modern doors. And you'll see that in the second part, because the interior will be very modern. I didn't know if I wanted to put any kind of modern extension or anything like that on the house, which probably would have been cool, especially for this back porch area. But just kind of the more I thought about it, I just decided not to do that, because I feel like Roderick really loves the house as is and makes very minor exterior changes to the house because he just loves the way the house looks now. So those windows in the back will be a change, and then I'm gonna put a big glass awning from Get Famous on the front door, and that will be maybe another exterior change. And so now I'm working on the 3-car garage, and this part here, I wanted this space to feel like it used to be horse stables, but as the years went by, they repurposed it as a garage for their vehicles, obviously. And so that's why you have those big kind of opening spaces, and then I actually use the little garage pieces from City Living that you can actually put graffiti on, and I use those as the garage doors. But this garage will be a gym. There'll be some skill building items such as the flower arranging table and the woodworking table, and so all their cars will actually be parked outside, and there's a car enough for every vampire in the building. But this space will they'll be using to train, when they have to. They probably don't train that much anymore. But there are a couple of vampires that I think still like to train and still like to work out. So that's what this space will be. And I wanted it to feel very used. That's actually the first time I've ever used that rug in any build. And I've been building in The Sims 4 for like 2.5 years, almost 3 years. I've never used that rug, but it actually works really well in this room. But yeah, I wanted this space to feel very lived in, that they chuck a lot of stuff that they don't use that much anymore in here. Because again, I think the interior of the house, I want it to feel very clean and neat, and I don't think that they keep a lot of stuff. They're vampires. They've been around for a really long time. They have a lot of things, but I imagine that they happily get rid of things as the decades go by, because they realize, why do I need this stuff? This stuff is useless. And then they probably kind of do transitions of, they'll keep it with them, and then they'll move it to the garage, and then every once in a while they'll clean out the garage of all the stuff that they don't need. But for now, I go pretty clutter crazy. I wish there were some more vampire specific clutter items. I don't know what those clutter items would be, but I wish there were some more things. I probably could have used a little bit of more of the like gothic pieces in here, but yeah, I mostly just use, I use the entire pack. I did not limit myself with this build at all. In the outside or the inside, you will see, did not limit myself. I try not to, just because I don't use CeCi. Speaking of which, I am going to be doing a CeCi interior build of a build that I did on Twitch. That will be coming up on the channel hopefully in the next couple of weeks. Just, trying to map out everything. I have so many ideas, especially for builds that, sometimes I'll have an idea that gets pushed back because another idea will pop up. Oh, real quick, this little trick here, that little piece on the wall is from Strangerville. And I've seen other people take the bikes from university and lift them up on a wall to make it look like they were, hanging there. But I don't think I've seen anybody use that little piece. So I thought that was really cool. The problem is there's like these little knobs on it, and every time I would raise the bike up to look like it was hanging from the knob, it kept falling down. So that's why you saw me like play with it over and over again. And you saw a little glimpse of the interior. That's going to change because, like I said before, I kept changing my mind. This area, I started to make it like a little graveyard, but then I thought, no, they don't keep bodies. There are no bodies. So I just made it a little sitting area. Then you'll see me go through and add some more trees to the driveway. And then I also decided to raise up the terrain towards the front of the house so that the house looks like it kind of waterfalls off the back. I don't really ever use terrain tools because they're kind of hard for me to use, but of course practice makes perfect. And so I think that it looks okay. It took me a while to kind of get in, and I still didn't get it quite as even as I wanted to, but I did my best, and hopefully the effect that I wanted, you can tell what that looks like. So hopefully that works. But we are coming up on the end of the build, so if you enjoyed it, please let me know by giving me a happy little thumbs up by way of pressing the like button. Comment down below, what do you think of the house? Would you ever live in a big black house or a small blacked out house? It seems a little weird, but I just think, you go on Pinterest, there's so many beautiful blacked out houses. I think I would love to live in one. And if you haven't already and you want to see more content from me, please subscribe. I try to post every single week, and I'd love to have you part of the Southie family. But as always, my name is CeCi, and I promise never to break your game. Bye.